I finally found a great deal on this original fat PS3 CECH-A01. The console runs just fine, all the backwards compatibility feature works just great, and this one is for sure in need of some new parts. If you don't already know, only the original model of the PS3, in this case the CECH-A01, are the only ones that are capable of backwards compatibility with the PS1 and the PS2. The difference being the motherboard on this PS3 is the only one to have the chip for the PS2 emulation. With it being well over 8 years old at this point, it's bound to have some issues down the line. The most common issues with this model leans towards the power supply, and it tends to overheat whenever under high load, sometimes completely shutting the console off or getting the yellow light of death. So the obvious fix would be a new power supply. So if we take a look at the wiki for the PS3 power supplies, which I also left down in the description below, it shows that the APS-226 has an efficiency rating of 83.13% and that it's compatible with our model. So choosing this PSU would probably be our best bet. As for the cooling side of things, I think I'm going to keep the 15-blade fan. You can also go for the 19-blade fan, but in my opinion, they relatively do the same kind of performance. I'm also going to deep clean the system because this thing is packed full of dust. I'm going to show you guys how to also delid the console, put some new thermal paste in, as well as some new thermal pads on some of the other chips, because this console definitely needs some new life. It is well over 10 years old at this point. I can already see the dust seeping out of this guy, so let's break open this bad boy. So I already went ahead and took off the warranty sticker with my heat gun, but once we take the warranty sticker off, we can open this tab up, and it's going to reveal this screw down here. And that screw is just gonna come flying right out. And then this side panel is just going to shift this way, I believe. And then it's just gonna come up like that. And then we have these 9 screws that we have to take out here. See, some of them are going to be smaller than the other ones, so you want to kind of remember which ones went where. And if you don't, usually the larger ones here are going to be like sticking out a whole bunch, so it's kind of noticeable that it's not in the right place. And once all of those are unscrewed, I believe this top part comes off. It lifts off just like this. So you kind of want to just pull it all the way off like a book. And then on the bottom here, there is going to be a ribbon cable. I believe we can just pull this guy out. You can already kind of see, ooh, all that dust. Here is our old power supply that we're going to be switching out. But in order to get to that, there's a few screws. But dude, look at all that dust. Ooh, even on the cover here, you can see on the disk drive, just caked with dust. So yeah, once I disassemble everything, I'm probably going to take this guy outside and just spray it down with the air compressor. So next, we're going to take the CD drive out. So we're going to have to unhook power cable here. And I believe on the underside here, it has its own ribbon cable. So you always want to be careful with these kind of ribbon cables. You don't want to put any kind of stress or a kink into them. Carefully take this guy out. There is a tab here. This guy just comes right out. And then we can also disconnect our power supply as well. And then holding in the power supply, there are 5 screws holding it in. So let's take those out. Then we can also disconnect this cable down here. And our power supply should just come right out. Ew, dust bunnies, dude. Even one down here. Look at this. Ew, gross, dude. You can also disconnect this guy up here. Then we can also take out this ribbon cable here, as well as these boards. And then this board here is held in by these 4 screws. And then we can take off this ribbon cable. And then this guy should just come right up. Before I take off the cover here, we're going to flip this guy up and take out this ribbon cable. Then we have to take out all 8 of these screws holding the motherboard in. And you'll come to see again that the motherboard holds a few of these smaller screws. So just as long as you keep them all together, you should be able to figure out which screw goes where. This one's a bit longer in the corners here. Now, before we take our motherboard out, we're also going to have to get to this hard drive bay here and take out this screw holding in our hard drive. And then this just slides out this way. And then using both hands here, I can take one corner and then the other corner of our motherboard, and we can start to lift it out of the case. Oh my God, dude. Look at this, man. Oh, Lord. That is just bad, dude. It's all clumping up on the bottom here. I've never opened up a console this bad before. This is gross. And then there's another set of 3 screws holding this in. Then we're going to take out these 4 screws for our heatsink. And then we can very gently pull up this cover here, and then it'll come out the side like that. Here are some of the thermal pads that we're going to be changing out as well. So I'm also going to go ahead and flip this guy back over, and then we can go ahead and disconnect our battery as well. We can very gently take off our heatsink here, revealing that old thermal paste. Oh man, yeah, that stuff's definitely gonna get replaced. Taking these 2 screws out for the hard drive bay. And then once our hard drive screws are off here, we can gently peel back this IO shield here, just so we can pull off this cover here. And you want to take it by the corners, and you want to go very gently. You don't want to give it too much force, but you want to give it enough just so it pops off. And just like that, we're finally now down to the root of our motherboard. So before I do anything else, I'm going to go outside, take the air compressor, and clean all of these parts off. Now we're going to start off and go through the most difficult process of this whole disassembly. So both of these chips have 2 different thermal glue patterns, 4 specific standpoints where the glue is going to be, and they're going to be like little squares like so. So there's going to be glue here, it's going to be glue here, here, and here. And then for our cell chip, which is going to be a little bit more harder to get into, since the glue is going to be all throughout the perimeter of the housing. And with one of our plates off, we can go ahead and clean any of the glue that is on these posts here. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and just clean all of this off here and prep it for new paste. And then again, we're going to heat up the plate here, and we're just going to break the glue that's going all around the outside here without penetrating the chip that is in the middle. So you want to be careful, not forcing it too much, but just enough so we can get the plate off of the glue here surrounding the outside. So like I said before with the cell chip, the glue is going to be all around the perimeter, but there is a space that leaves it open down in the bottom here. I'm going to be using this painter's knife to really get under there and clear out most of the glue that is around here. And I'm going to start off by going through this gap over here, but without going all the way in the middle, because you don't want to scratch the chip that's actually inside of here. And the reason that I am using this painter's knife is that it is really, really thin, and it's really going to help us get under there much, much easier. I will leave a link in the description for this product so you can check it out if you want to. So you're going to start off by coming under here, a little bit to the side here, but realistically you can start from wherever, but you want to keep your painter's knife on the edge while guiding it through to the other side, but you don't want to drag it into the middle because you're going to obviously cause the chip to be scratched or damaged. So we're going to come under here, take off this first part of the glue and take off this bit of the glue. And then you can flip around the board, and then you're going to come under here, take off this part of the glue. And then we're going to take off this part of the glue. And then that other side. And also, while you're doing this, you want to be cautious of all of these little components around here that you can see. want to be cautious that you're not knocking them out. So this painter's knife tool is actually really good because it does flex. So you can actually get over those components and not knock them out. But after doing so, you should be able to take your painter's knife here and just flip this up and out of here. And if done correctly, there should be no noticeable scratches on any of the traces throughout the entire chip here. But yeah, this thing is super, super hard to get off. You want to take your time, take it slow, don't force it. The trick is, if you want to, you can add a little bit of heat with a heat gun or something to soften up the adhesive glue that is on the chip. And if you want to, you can go out and buy a dead motherboard, whether it's a classic PS3 or maybe a newer model. If you want to practice, that'd probably be the best option. But I've already cleaned off both my chips here, so now it's ready for new thermal paste. Now the paste that I recommend here is the Arctic MX4. This will do a very well job on keeping those temps low when under load. So we're going to take our thermal paste here and we're just going to put down a pea-sized amount. Not too much, just a little bit. That should be good there. And we're going to put some on the RSX as well. Just a pea-sized amount, not too much, but also not too little. Just about there should be good. And then once our thermal paste is on, we can go ahead and put back our metal plates here and just allow them to rest on top. You can apply some pressure here as well, just to make sure it's flush with the surface of the chip as well as our cell. And then now we can go for reassembly. One thing I want to note with the reassembly here is that when you're putting everything back together, you want to make sure that these plates are lined up very evenly with how they originally were. I say this because when you put it back together and this is unevenly slid off, kind of like so, it's going to cause some overheating issues and it might shoot out a yellow light of death. So when reassembling, just make sure that these are lined up with the chip as best as possible. With that being said, let's go ahead and reassemble. Before we put the motherboard cover back on, we're going to have to replace the thermal pads that were once on these chips before, as well as these components here. So I've already cut out my pieces with this thermal pad that I found on Amazon. It's best to use a thickness of 2.5 millimeter so it can really stay in contact with the components on the motherboard while the plate is on. So I've already cut out some of my pieces. So let's go ahead and reapply our thermal pads. If we come here to the back, we can notice that there's an opening for our cell chip here. We can put a thermal pad here as well for better performance. And we're also going to be putting the thermal pads for our tokens here as well. So we can take our back plate here and lay out the pads like so. This one sitting right behind the cell chip. We've got this one here with the dots, and the rest here are going to be for our other components as well as the tokens. From here, we can throw our top plate back on while keeping note that these metal plates here aren't sliding around as well. And then we can come over here, flex the IO shield back into place. But if you have to readjust the metal plates here for our chips, you can do so. Just keep a good eye on these metal plates when you're putting this back together. And then now we can slot in our back plate here. So I don't want these to slide around too much. So we're just going to slide this guy back under here. And it's going to come down like so. Now see, my metal plates kind of shifted a bit here. So we're going to move these back into place directly in the middle. I think that looks good there. And then I'm going to screw the storage bay back into place. And I'm going to be swapping out the fan for a 19 blade fan here. So I'm going to clean this up really quick and then throw this guy in as well, just to see how well it performs. We can slide this guy's cable back into place here, and then we're going to flip it around, and then you'll see here we have 2 copper contact points. Now you want to make sure that all the old thermal paste is cleaned off of here before you apply the new one. And let's go ahead and reassure that these plates are lined up exactly in the middle of these chips so we can avoid that yellow light of death when we shoot our system back on. And then we can go ahead and reapply thermal paste to the top of these plates using just a very small amount here. That's probably good there, and on the RSX chip as well. And then we can throw on our heatsink on top. And you just want to make sure that's nice and firm in place. And then we can go ahead and reconnect our fan connector here. And then we're simply going to flip this back over while applying even pressure, and then we're going to reapply these back plates here. Now these back plates do kind of like tend to flex, so you only want to screw this one in just a little bit, and then come to the other side here, kind of hold this down a bit, and screw this guy in a little bit, and then just evenly screw these in so it applies even pressure on both sides. And then we can do the same on the other plate. Now we can clip our back cover back into place. Flip that guy back over. And also don't forget, connect the battery back as well. And we can bring back our bottom cover, put everything back inside. Then we can put back the screws holding it in place, starting with this smaller screw up here. And then our other smaller screw on the side over here. And our longer screw up here in the corner. And the rest of the regular size screws right where the arrows are pointing. As for these 2 screws, this is where our power button is going to sit, so we can also put that guy back into place. And then this ribbon cable here connects down onto this connector. Again, be careful when putting in these ribbon cables because you do not want to bend or kink them. And then we'll take our screw with the washer on here and throw that guy back onto our yellow ground wire. And then, like I said, we're going to upgrade our power supply to the APS-226. And to connect that, it also has the 2 pins, just like over here. So let's throw this guy back in, making sure it's nice and secure. And then we are going to take our connector back here and connect that guy back. And we'll take our 5 screws and screw that guy back into place. And we can take the other connector back here and connect it up with these 2 ports here. Then we'll take our antenna and throw it back up here, along with the screw to hold it in place up here, as well as the board to go with it. And remember, this is another ribbon cable that runs up the front here and under, connecting up with this slot here. Be careful when putting this back in because this one can also kink, so you want to be careful when slotting it back in. And the connector also has this tab here that locks it in place. So we're just going to slot in our ribbon cable with the tab up, and then we can throw that tab down to lock it in place. And that's just going to rest on top of here like so. And then the arrows will show you where to put the screws. And we can reconnect our antenna wire with this tiny little port up here, and you can hear it lock into place. Then we can take our memory card slot with its ribbon cable with this tab up here. With this blue part facing towards us, we can slide this guy back into place, and then putting the tab down, locking it in place, and then it's going to connect to this one right here. So we can flip this tab back up, connect this guy back in, and then to lock it in, just throw that tab down, and then this is just going to rest on top like so. And then there's 2 screws holding this in. And lastly, we can put our CD drive back in. And lastly, we can slot back in our CD drive with the ribbon cable here, going to this connector up here. So it's just gonna slide in like so with the blue side facing up, and then it's going to lock down like so. And then once the CD drive's in place, it has a connector down here that correlates with this one right here. And then this wire can just be hooked down under here. And lastly, we've got our SSD here. So let's throw that guy back in. Now, before I put the cover back on, I just want to test it out and see if everything works. And we got an LED. That's a good sign. All right, let's give it a shot. And there we go, we've got life. Let me go ahead and set this up and let's test out our games just to make sure. And there we go, there's our PS2 disc. And let's see if our game runs. And let's also test out a PlayStation 1 game. Alright, that's good, our game's booting up. So the PS1 game works. And just to confirm, let's test out our PS3 game. Got identified, very nice. And our PS3 game loaded up, very nice. So everything seems to be working just fine, making this modification a success. Now that I've ensured that everything works properly on the system, I also wanted to take the time and clean up the plastic a little bit. Maybe clean up the scratches a bit, make it look at least a little bit better than what it is right now, because you can definitely see all the scratches all over this system. And to do this, I'm going to be using this scratch doctor, which I'll also leave in the description below. I'm going to put some masking tape down here so we can really see the difference between the non-scratch side and the slightly more polished side. So I'm just going to apply a line here, I guess. And I'm using a microfiber towel here, and I'm just going to go in a circular motion, kind of just trying to spread all of the material everywhere. I'm going to apply some more. I'm also trying to apply just a little bit of pressure. It's kind of starting to come up just little by little. Alright, so I went ahead and tried to do my best to polish out this side of the plastic here, but compared to the other side here, I only see just a little bit of difference. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera, but there's not a whole lot of difference there. Maybe I've got to test some other compounds. For minimal wear, this would probably do fine with just like very light scratches, not these deep scratches here that you see, but it still does the job in a way. So I'm gonna do my best and just do a basic polish with all of the plastic around the system, and we'll see how it looks after that. Alright, so I've gone ahead and polished up the rest of the console. I've done my best to do so. That disc tray is actually looking pretty nice. But yeah, there's just a lot of deep scratches within the console. There's nothing much I can do. I can try a different product maybe later down the line. I think this is the best it's gonna get. I think it's missing one last thing. Luckily, I bought this on eBay as well. It's the memory card door, and this thing, I believe, just slaps right on there, letting this be the cherry on top, eh? There it is. Now she looks complete. Not bad. Adding that new power supply will definitely make the console all around cooler, especially with the 19 blade fan supporting it as well. And then going the extra mile to delid the console and put on new thermal paste is definitely going to add a performance bump to your experience. Hopefully this guide helped you out, and maybe in the next one I'll try to use some different compounds to be able to polish the PS3 to absolute perfection. All of the tools that I used in this video will also be down in the description below. Let me know what you guys think. Are you going to try this on your console? Because it definitely benefits the life of the PS3 as a whole. Leave a like if this helped you out, and if you want to see more, subscribe to the channel. But until next time, guys, deuces.